This is David Stark from WatcherPass.com, your website for movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Today, I'm all suited up. I've got my football jersey on because I'm here to talk about 12 Mighty Orphans, a new inspirational sports drama coming to you from Sony Pictures Classics. It's releasing June 18th, 2021 in theaters, so you can check it out then. It tells the story of a 1920s Texas football team that was founded in an orphanage by a legendary coach who kind of went there to build this program up, and kind of their unlikely story of going from nothing to, a deep run in Texas football, which if you know anything about football, Texas football is legit, even in the 1920s. And this team kind of overcame everything to, play and find a sense of family. It's a fun movie. It's got those inspirational sports, tropes, if you want to call them. I'm a sucker for inspirational sports films, so I loved it. It's got it's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of teachable moments. It's got adversity. It's got overcoming adversity. It's really, kind of the whole package of an inspirational sports film. So I'm going to talk about 3 things I liked and 3 things I didn't like about the movie, and let you decide, let you figure out if you want to watch it. So the first thing I liked is the cast. I was a little surprised by this cast because, when I think Luke Wilson, I don't think a straight edge, hard-nosed football coach, but he did a really great job in this film. He kind of fully transformed. He took on some mannerisms of the legendary coach Rusty Russell, who took over this orphanage after having a successful coaching career. He kind of wanted to give something to these boys and kind of give them some hope. So he took over this orphanage's football team, built the program from scratch essentially, and also in the process innovated in football. He was kind of the recognized creator of the spread offense, which is a pretty well-known offense in college especially, and coming to the NFL more, where you kind of use your speed rather than pure physical strength to kind of overcome opponents, and that's exactly what he needed in this film. So I really liked his character. He's a really kind of relatable fatherly character. And then also this film has Martin Sheen, who is another relatable fatherly character in this film. He plays the doctor and defensive coach, and it's Martin Sheen, so he's a great actor. He's someone that you want to be around. He's charismatic, and he's very comfortable in this role. That Luke Wilson and Martin Sheen kind of had a nice dynamic as the 2 coaches. And then you have Vinessa Shaw, who plays Juanita Russell, who is Rusty Russell's wife, and she doesn't have as much screen time as I think I would have wanted, but the film is a pretty long film already, so I can't imagine they could have done more. But she was also inspirational in this film. She helped support the team, helped support the school, helped support her husband, and became a recognized beloved teacher in her own right in this school as well. And then it's kind of a surprise was Wayne Knight in this film as the headmaster of the orphanage. Now, he's not the most likable character, but Wayne Knight does a really good job as that. It was really fun to kind of see him. You'll recognize him from Jurassic Park, and that'll be the first thing you think of. But then you get to see him in this other role where he is over the top. He's a very different character than I think we've seen him play before, and so it was fun to see him as well. And then the true stars of the film are the boys, the football players, the orphans, and they're so different, which is fun to see. Like each one has their own kind of ticks and mannerisms and issues, but they all kind of come together in this team, which if you've watched any inspirational sports films, that's kind of a general trope. That's something that you'll get used to, but it was accentuated in this film because of how different these kids are, and because of their backgrounds, because of their own internal issues that they had to overcome, both physically and emotionally, to kind of progress in this football league. So the second thing I liked is the balance, the tone of the film. It had a nice balance between drama and comedy. I mean, this is dealing with Depression era America, the Dust Bowl America. You have an orphanage with kids that feel abandoned and feel like nothing will ever happen for them in life, and they just kind of they feel very down. And so it deals with some very serious aspects, some serious aspects of society, but then it has this kind of nice comedic tone to it that kind of helps soften the overly dramatic parts of it. You've got the kids, they play around, they're kids, so they mess around, they goof around. And also, the film intentionally has some, comedic parts of it. There's some snarky comments, there's some ridiculous situations. The music that's underlying a lot of this helps kind of keep the tone light, even though it deals with some serious subject matter. So the balance made it a far more enjoyable movie. And it felt a lot kind of like a Disney inspirational sports film, even though this is from Sony. It kind of had a similar feel. You had some overly positive messages, some characters that are a little more out there and a little more silly and things like that. It had a nice overall feel to the film. And the last thing I loved about it is it's a true story. I mean, I'm sure they took some liberties with the story, right? Like it's a Hollywood movie. Of course, they're going to take some liberties. But, by and large, it seems like this film, this event happened, this team happened. One thing I really liked, you see this sometimes in inspired by a true story film. At the end, there will be no information about the characters or what happened, which makes it like, okay, well, there was some event and then they just wrote this crazy story about it. But in this one, pretty much every character you meet has some sort of credits scene where you see what happened to them after the fact, and it really kind of helps drive home how important this story was and how important this coach was to these kids, to see kind of what they did with their lives after the football game and after after their time at the orphanage. And it was it's a nice cherry at the end of this movie that to kind of let you know that this did actually impact people and it did have changed the course of people's lives. So if I do love inspirational sports films. I love true stories. So it kind of was a nice balance in this movie. Some things I didn't like about this movie. It was still an entertaining film. I don't think any of these are really that negative, but here are just a few things I didn't like. The first, it was a little overly dramatic. There's some mystery around the head coach's background that had some quick flashbacks to I guess his service during World War I, but it didn't seem to relate as much to the story as I think they intended. And so it just, when these happened, they just felt kind of random. There was a pretty prominent scene early on that I guess was made him have a flashback to his World War I service, and I think it probably did shape his character, but it didn't feel like that was needed for the overall story. There was plenty of drama in the story itself. They don't think like they had to pound on. Maybe they were just trying to stay true to the true to life story because the coach was a World War I vet, but it just didn't feel like that was needed for a film that's already relatively long. The next thing was there was some rough acting. I mean, it's enjoyable. Nothing too distracting, but some of the boys' characters, their delivery was a little rough. They would switch from emotion. Their emotional transitions were a little too abrupt. Things like that. It wasn't bad. Like it was fine. I enjoyed it. I didn't really, it didn't distract me from the overall movie, but it was a little overly dramatic at times. Some of the acting was a little rough. The last thing is some of the characters were very transparent. Like they were almost caricatures. There was a rival coach who, if you were to make like toxic swagger, Texas coach, he would be it. It was like essentially here he is. And it makes it so that there's no nuance in the story. Like who the bad guys are, who the good guys are. They are very bad, and Disney inspirational sports drama bad, but they're very bad, and the good guys are very good. And there was not a lot of gray area in this film, which is fine. I mean, that's I think that's the tone they were going for, and they really wanted to like paint the characters as bad people. But it made it so you're kind of like, okay, that person is a jerk, and everything they say is gonna be terrible. And it did lead to some funny scenes between Rusty, the orphanage coach, who tries to like turn the other cheek, but also still kind of dig in a little bit. Like he'll make a comment that on the surface seems friendly or good sportsmanship, but if you know the characters and kind of think about it a little more, it's a dig at them. So there were some fun little plays there, but overall, it felt like the characters, didn't feel as natural. Some of the bad guys didn't feel as natural as I think, they could have. They felt like they were overtly bad. And maybe they were. Maybe things were less nuanced back then in the 1920s and 1930s. Maybe people, were not as complicated. But I think they probably had a little bit more nuance, but just for the story, they wanted to paint them as a very bad characters. So, like I said, nothing too negative. I think the film, it's not a great film, but it is an inspirational sports film that is fun and tells a really interesting true story. So if you're interested in that, then I think you will love this movie. It's got football action, it's got heart, it's got all the things that tug at your heartstrings in these types of films. And the other thing that's really nice about it is it has a few things that might be a little objectionable for young adults, but nothing too bad. Like, there's a little bit of blood at some, during some part. There's some very heavy discipline, and there's also, some antics of teenage boys, that you would expect at the time. It all feels kind of time appropriate. So I think if you want to take your kids to this, there's nothing, there's not much objectionable about it. I think you could take take a young adult and they would enjoy it, and they would enjoy the story and the sports action and things like that. And it's not, it's a good film to take the family to if they can sit through an almost 2 hour movie. So that's 12 Mighty Orphans. It's releasing in theaters on June 18th, 2021. It's an inspirational sports film. It kind of spoke to me because it's got football and sports and heart. So if that speaks to you, then you should check it out as well. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot and makes sure all my new content goes straight to you. And as always, please go to watchyourpass.com for all your movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Thank you.